Now I am having my back massaged by a massager, which you may hear in the background. But I am very sore, so I'm going to leave it there. Sorry. But what's up, Star Trek fans? How you doing? You know, something I just realized about Star Trek relics. And this may be like there may be article. I haven't looked this up. There may be articles on this everywhere. Maybe there's like videos done on it everywhere. I didn't want to spoil it and go looking it up. I didn't want to look up how many other people have commented on this, and I didn't want to Google how many websites have covered this because I wanted to give my take without, being, influenced or whatever. So basically, there's an episode of TNG, and by the way, this is going to be a little bit of a nitpick a little bit. So there's an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, as you well know, where, and spoilers if, maybe we really should have said that, but, I mean, you should know that everybody here knows spoilers, where Scotty shows up, stuck in a transporter for 75 years, shows up on The Next Generation. This is obviously just to pop, a rating and also, do something cool with the old cast and the new cast. They did this several times with several people. They did it with Spock, McCoy, did it later in a movie with Kirk, which is going to relate to what I'm talking about here. But basically, when Scotty arrives on the Enterprise D, he's like, I bet Captain Kirk himself sent, like, whatever. Like, he basically, Scotty says that he thinks that Captain Kirk was trying to help him or whatever. But the bottom line is, the fact is, Scotty indicates that he bet Captain Kirk was doing something. However, this Scotty now will go on to live in the future forever. He never, that we know of and whatever else, never goes back to the past, never goes back to that timeline or anything like that. Here he is in TNG. Now, but later on in the movie Generations, Scotty is seen, and not only is he seen seemingly older, right? Older here at a later time, and so the dates don't match up, but he's also speaking with Kirk. And then Kirk dies on Generations, right? In the beginning scene. Now, Kirk's not really dead. He's in the Nexus, but Scotty will never see Kirk again in this timeline. So how could Scotty have gone back in time in relics to TNG and then lived out the rest of his life in the future on TNG, but he's older here and he knew Kirk, but then he saw Kirk die. So nothing can take place after this. So, like, my point is that Kirk is going to die here in front of Scotty. So Scotty then years later wouldn't go forward to TNG and then say, oh, Captain Kirk must be looking for me. He wouldn't be doing that because Captain Kirk is dead. But also, this Scotty shouldn't even exist because this is older than the other Scotty, I believe. And but even if it's not, even let's say this Scotty is younger, still doesn't make sense because that Scott is on the last time he's in Kirk's timeline, he sees Kirk die. And so, or the last time he's in Kirk's timeline on TNG, Kirk is alive. But then Scotty's in the future. But now Scotty's here and Kirk's alive and he sees him die. So it doesn't make any sense. Something is wrong here. Now, I don't know if I'm missing something or something, whatever. How I would explain it, I don't know if there's an explanation for this somewhere in a book or in a canon somewhere. But I would so again, if you're not following this, in an episode of TNG, Scotty gets stuck in a transporter back in his timeline, and then in an episode of TNG 75 years later, they beam Scott out of the transporter he's trapped in, and now he exists, and he says, I bet Captain Kirk was looking for me. But he should have already known Captain Kirk was dead. So he shouldn't have thought Captain Kirk was looking for him because later on in the movie Generations, Captain Kirk dies in front of Scotty. So the only way that this makes sense is if off-screen or in a book we didn't read or something like I didn't read somewhere, Scotty was sent back in time to his correct timeline. Or I guess maybe potentially Scotty could have made it out of the transporter in his time and been actually rescued, but a copy of himself stayed behind. So now there was two Scotties, one that was beamed out and remained the rest of the time in that current year, and then another version of him that wasn't rescued until years later because they didn't realize a double pattern had been created. Now that's more unlikely in my opinion. What's more likely to me is that, listen, in Star Trek The Next Generation, and even in Star Trek the original series, they go back in time to rescue whales. They do time travel all the time. Now, in The Next Generation, they never talk about using time travel. And that's what's crazy is they never talk about using it really unless like a plot calls for it. So you always wish that time travel was more flushed out, like it's prohibited basically. You're not really allowed to ever do it. It's so against everything. But if there is time travel, then so many other people would be doing it. And what I would have rather have done is that they explain in The Next Generation and explain in Star Trek that time travel is super, like, it's really rare that you make it alive in time travel. The Borg have got it down, and maybe a few other things have got it down, but for the most part, there's just major errors, and almost nobody can accomplish it, and it's very risky. It's almost like when you transport in the transporter, it's like 99.999% chance you're going to come out fine. It's not a big deal. But every so once in a blue moon, something happens. Well, doing time travel is like a 30% chance of success or 15% chance of success or something. But even that, people would be trying it all the time, I feel like. But I'm saying all this to the point of, well, maybe Scotty was able to go back in time to his regular timeline. Maybe Scotty just couldn't handle it, and someone came along, an alien, or maybe someone in Starfleet, and they said, Scotty, we're trying to test our time travel something, whatever. You could help us out by testing that, and you could go back in time to the time that you're supposed to be from. You're not supposed to be here. So that'd be cool if there was like a side story somewhere, or like a Q, or, if it wasn't Q, maybe like the time. Now that we know in Star Trek Enterprise, there's a time war, a temporal time war, Cold War, whatever. It'd be cool if like there was a story where Daniels or somebody like that showed up with Mr. Scott and said, I'm Scotty, you're not supposed to be here. There's something with the timeline. I can take you back like nothing happened. But I mean, I don't know. But I would explain it as like somehow he was able to go back in time to his time, and it's almost like it never happened. Because if he goes back to his time and his timeline, then the Starship Enterprise crew would still remember him and still remember this happened, but they wouldn't know where he went. And it wouldn't really alter much, but it would, because now he'd be existing where for the past 75 years he had not existed at that time. So what does that mean for the timeline? I don't know. Or do you just think, well, this is so dumb anyway that I just don't care and I just ignore it? I mean, because I didn't even ever think about this until just now. It just popped into my head. It just dawned on me that, wait a minute, how could Scotty be in Generations with Kirk and watch Kirk die, but then Scotty, years before that, was supposedly beamed into TNG because he was stuck in a transporter for 75 years, and he thought maybe Kirk was trying to help him. He shouldn't think that, because he should know Kirk's dead. But the timeline also doesn't match up either. So, am I wrong? I'm like, I almost can't believe that I'm just discovering this. Like that's my problem. I'm just finding out now that this is what's going on. Well, what do you guys think? And to shout out to all of you out there who have already known this or already thought about this, And anybody who never thought about this, sorry I just ruined things for you, but like popped into my head. Going forward, I'm probably just going to pretend that he went back to his timeline right after TNG happened. And theoretically, that episode then never really happened, potentially, because it has no effect on almost anything. So there's a possibility that never happened. But, well, no, I mean, I guess it still happened because he still got stuck in the transporter. He still got saved in TNG, and then he went back to his life. So everything would have still happened the way it happened, and nothing would have really changed. So actually, that does make sense. Wow. So there you go. So that solves it right there. So if there isn't a book about it already, I should probably have written the book. I should probably write the book now. I've written so many Star Trek stories that I've never shared with anybody, but that I just do for myself. But yeah, so there you go. So Scotty was saved out of the transporter after 75 years. No, but that would ruin it because then he goes back in time and now he's existing for those 75 years. Huh. That doesn't work. I'm so lost. I suppose he could go back and then... No. Guys, this is a conundrum. All right, so wait a minute. Gets stuck in the transporter for 75 years. But then he's saved by TNG. Later, after he goes off the Enterprise in a shuttle, he then eventually can't take it anymore, and he gets somebody to perform some kind of time travel or wormhole. Maybe he even gets Spock to do it. How about that? Maybe he goes and finds Spock, and he goes, "Oh my God, Spock!" Blah blah blah. And Spock is like, "I could, we could attempt time travel, Doctor, and of course we can't tell anybody about it." So maybe Spock helps Scott slingshot, go back in time to his own time, like he never left. And that really, and then assuming that was always the way it was going to happen, it always happened in that sort of a loop. It would mean that everything we have seen is the way it is, and everything that will happen is the way it's going to happen because that's the way it's always happened. So you're not changing the timeline of the last 75 years because it never changed. He always got stuck in the transporter for 75 years, but Scotty was immediately beamed back through time travel to exist in the timeline the way he does. And the only people that are really affected by this then are the crew of the Enterprise who get to meet this guy who eventually goes back in time and disappears from their timeline, but they never see him again anyway. So, yeah. I think it does. You know what? Damn it, it does work. This is Star Trek Late Night. Leave your comments down below. Did I just piss you off by rambling over and over again the same thing? Did your brain hurt trying to watch my brain sort this thing out? This is why I'm not a physicist, a scientist, or any of the above. This is why I talk about stupid things on YouTube. This is Star Trek Late Night. I love Star Trek, and I'll catch you next time.